येन तस्मै नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। भूतैर्महद्भिर्यन्नापुरोऽपिधु निर्माय शेते यदमुषु पुरुषा भूते गुणान् षोडश षोडशात्मका सोऽलङ्कृशिष्ट भगवान् वचांसि मे। श्रीकृष्ण शरणं शरणागतं कथा अमृतं सततपीतम् भक्ति वेदांत मार्ग सर्वलोक ऋषिदेव जन्न प्रसन्नम्, सर्वलोक ऋषिदेव जन्न प्रसन्नम्। Hare Krishna, dear Prabhus and Matajis, welcome to the morning Bhagavatam study session. So we'll continue with the verses from the 7th chapter titled The Son of Drona Punished, from first canto of Srīmad Bhāgavatam. So far we have seen that Narad Muni, the transcendental space traveler, singing the glories of the Lord, has left, and now Srila Vyasadeva, he is immediately following his instructions and without delay trying to execute what he had learned from him and trying to realign the misdirection that previously he had placed. So the misdirection was, firstly, that he did not glorify Krishna exclusive enough. Secondly, he had more emphasis on the Chaturpurushartha, which is economic development, fulfilling of desires, earning of wealth, and ultimately when all these don't provide satisfaction, which it never will, then being frustrated, trying to liberate oneself. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, in Sanskrit it is said. And so even though in spiritual path, Vyasadeva was trying to write the Vedas, 108 Upanishads, 18 Puranas, he wrote Vedanta Sutra, Mahabharata, but after having done all this, he was still unsatisfied. So if the author is unsatisfied, then who would buy his books? It took a spiritual master as Narad Muni to come and give and make Vyasadeva introspect on what he had done and give direct instructions without beating around the bush. And that instruction was very simple. You have to exclusively, with full saturation and intensity, glorify Krishna. And that is the sum and total of spiritual life. And for that, we see here Vyasadeva firstly establishes himself in absorption. For what does it mean? It simply means that we have to absorb our chanting, hearing, and consciousness in chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If you are not able to do this, then all other spiritual activities that we may do, it will be like licking of the bottle of honey without tasting the honey. Or it will be like beating empty husk to get wheat out. Nothing will come out. Or it will be like planting burnt seed into fertile land. No matter how fertile and healthy the soil will be, the seeds won't sprout. Therefore, this absorption in Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, immediately Srila Prabhupada says it makes us transcend the material, sensual, mental, and intellectual strata of life and establishes us on the spiritual plane. Now, we may have experienced this in our lives at some point in time. But when we give up this practice, or there is a lapse in that practice, or when we become lazy in such practice, then again, because we are marginal potency, as we looked yesterday, which is called Tatakta Shakti, then the illusory energy of the Lord immediately captures us. And again, our cycle of material existence begins. Therefore, like we eat food every day, and like we have bath every day and brush our teeth, I hope so everyone does that. Similarly, every day, this drinking of Bhagavatamrita nectar and Namamrita nectar, the holy names and the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, is so important. When we drink nectar of holy names, it measures our consciousness in spiritual. When we drink Bhagavatamrita, it does the same thing, but at the same time, it washes our mental and intellectual dirt that makes us divert from this path. And we see how now Vyasadeva, esteemed in absorption of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Krishna, what he proposes and what he does. So let's continue with text number 5. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nartam tatkritam cha vipadyate. Translation by His Loving Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Again, due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material misery. Word to word, yaya, by whom? Sammohitaha, illusion. So there is mohitaha, which means illusion. Sammohita means illusion on illusion. We think that we are okay. That is illusion on illusion. Jiva, the living entities, atmanam, self. Triguna atmakam, conditioned by the three modes of nature or a product of matter. Paraha, transcendental. So although we are jiva and we are paraha, transcendental, to three guna atmakam, to the three modes of material nature, api, in spite of this, manute takes it for granted. We take it for granted. Anartham, things not wanted. So artham means that things of value, which puts things in right perspective. Ultimately, the value means that in anything that we see and survey, everything is connected to Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. Anything in this world, if it has any value, it is to do with Krishna only. This is the second verse of the 4 seed verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very nicely, it is said, Lord Vishnu tells this to Brahma, Rite artham yat pratiyeta. If in this world, anything, O Brahma, if it appears to have any value, na pratiyeta cha atmani. And that value, if it's not in relation to me, then tad vidya atmano mayam. Then know that as my illusory energy, mayam. And what is that? How is it described? Yata bhaso yata tamaha. That reflection that one sees in darkness. There's no meaning to this term, reflection seen in darkness. Because to see a reflection, you need light. The light reflects through the mirror and it propels the vision of reflection. But if there is no light, then there is no value to the proposition of reflection. And when we are seeing things in darkness, that is illusion. And here it is described as that results in anartham, means things not wanted. So we take many ventures which actually are not wanted, not warranted, unnecessary. Tat, by that, kritam cha, reaction, avipadyate, undergoes thereof. And the result of those unwanted things is that we have to be forced by material nature, kritam cha, to undergo the various reactions due to our such unwanted interaction. Avipadyate, undergoes thereof. Would anyone like to read the paper to this verse, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I can please.
Yes, Mataji.
The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living being is pointed out with remedial measures which are to be undertaken and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. All this is mentioned in the particular verse, this particular verse. The living being is by constitution transcendental to the material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity understands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nascence. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted.
Thank you, Mataji. We'll just stop there and comment. So, it's very apparent the point that is made in this verse, and Srila Prabhupada is making. We are spirit, but we are marginal. When we come in contact with the three modes of material nature, we become influenced by it, conditioned by it, and then we think of ourselves as material. And that is the cause of all problems. But in effect, we are spiritual. In Srīmad Bhāgavatam, a nice analogy is given. It is said that yatha jale chandramasaha, that how in jala, water, chandramasaha, reflection of full moon is seen. So when we see a reflection of moon on water, what do we see? We see kampadis tat krito gunaha, that the moon is quivering or moving, and it is vibrating. However, when we look at the moon in the sky, the moon is still. It does not have the quality of quivering or shivering. However, asan apin atmano drashtu atma anatmano gunaha. Bhagavatam continues to say, because the seer associates the quality of quivering of water to the moon, to him, the moon appears to be quivering, but also, although the moon has nothing to do with this quality of quivering. Similarly, Atmana Atma anatmano gunaha. Similarly, the soul, the living entity, has nothing to do with material happiness, misery, honor, fame, or infamy. But because for time immemorial, we have been associating ourselves with the three modes of material nature or material nature, we appear to be undergoing all these thinking, feeling, willing sentiments in relation to the material nature, although we don't have anything to do with it. So, the aim of Bhagavatam is simply one. At least intellectually, when we bathe our consciousness daily in Srimad Bhagavatam, we should understand this point, at least theoretically. And this theoretical understanding that we are not this body, we are the soul, should lead us at least to theoretical mental detachment, intellectual detachment from the material world. Meaning that we may be suffering, our body may be suffering, but we can say, I am not this body, this suffering is not real. And this is called Savai Nivritti Dharmena. The very next verse of Srimad Bhagavatam says that this problem of misidentification and misassociation of material nature can be eradicated. How? By Savai Nivritti Dharmena, by doing devotional service in mode of detachment. Second thing required is Vasudevanukambhaya, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And the third thing, Bhakti Yogena, the process and execution of Bhakti Yoga has to be performed. And when these three things are done, when devotional service, depending on the Anukampa mercy of Krishna, in the mode of detachment, not that we tell Krishna, no, we want to enjoy these material things. Real devotional service begins when we actually understand that this world is a place of misery. There is no business that we have in this material world. We have to extricate ourselves out of the situation. We don't want to be endeavoring to be comfortable in this prison. Srila Prabhupada very nicely points out that the living being is constitutionally, the living entity is by constitution transcendental to material engagement. Nice word used here is engagement, meaning it's a prison. So why should we make ourselves and endeavor everything that we do to make ourselves comfortable in this prison? Rather, we should extricate ourselves from the situation. And when we follow these three processes, in mode of detachment, depending on Krishna's mercy, we execute devotional process. Then, Tirodhattair Shanairiha, Bhagavatam says, surely and gradually, Shanair means gradually, this misconception that we are not this body, but in reality we are spiritual soul, that will be realized by the living entity. Please go ahead, Mataji.
This cannot be because the living entity has his own way of thinking in his original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusionary energy takes the initiative, while the Supreme Lord is aloof. The Lord does not desire that a living being is illusioned by external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts the thankful task of keeping the forgotten soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusionary energy, because such performances of the illusionary energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. But the all affectionate Almighty Father At the same time, desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusionary energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation, and on his doing so, the prisoners are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom upon the kingdom of illusionary energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusionary energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders onto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusionary energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment to the Lord. The, the whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his
Thank you,
incarnation.
Mataji. We'll just stop there. So basic understanding, because of the association of material nature, we are put into this undesirable position. So in Bhagavad Gita 13:22, Krishna says to Arjuna, Purushaha Prakriti Sthohi. So Purushaha, the living entity, Prakriti Stha, being situated in material energy, Sthohi, certainly. What does he do? Bhungte Prakriti Jana. He enjoys that which is produced by material nature, Gunana, the modes of nature. And what is the cause of this? Karanam Gunasangasya. The cause, the Karan is our association with the modes of material nature. And in this way, Sat Asat, good and bad, yoni, species of life, janmasu, birth. Thus we meet good and evil amongst various species. Now, the purpose of Lord's appearance, as Srila Prabhupada very nicely concludes and writes in this long purport, is that Krishna appears in this material world to propagate his devotional service. Very nicely, Kunti Maharani prays, Bhavesmin Klishyamananam. In this Bhava, material world, Asmin, we all are Klishyamananam, are suffering. What is this suffering? This suffering is birth, death, old age, disease. This suffering is miseries from other living entities, miseries that the material nature imposes us, and the worst of all, the miseries of the mind. This is the worst miseries of all, Prabhu's and Mataji's scriptures say, because everything may be good, but if the mind cannot accept that, then in spite of everything being good, everything will be bad. So this is suffering. Now, and what is this suffering due to? This suffering is due to avidya, ignorance. Ignorance that we are spirit souls related to Krishna. And in absence of such knowledge, in absence of vidya, nescience reigns over all actions. And what is that nescience make us do? It makes us survey the whole material world as an object of enjoyment. Avidya. And seeing the material world, the material nature, the illusory energy of the Lord, we become allured by it, and then karma, desire develops that we exploit it. And therefore, Kunti Maharani says, avidya kama karma bihi, and then we do activities of exploitation, but we are not exploiting, we are being consumed by such exploitation. The material nature consumes us. Who is consuming whom? We should ask this question. When we indulge in sense gratification, we actually are getting consumed. Therefore, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita very nicely says that ye hi samsparsha bhoga. When we have touch, sparsha, samsparsha, bhoga, with the objects of sense gratification, ye hi samsparsha bhoga, that is the very cause, dukkha yonaya evate, that is the very cause of our suffering. Adi antavantu konteya, the beginning is suffering, the end is suffering. Oh, son of Kunti, Krishna says, Nate ramate buddha, the wise living entity does not delight in such pleasures. But what to do? We become so allured. However, there is a solution. What is that solution? Kunti Maharani says, Shravanaha smarana harni, hearing about Krishna, Shravanam, Smaranam, remembering about Krishna's activity, and Arhanam, worshipping Krishna. When we do these three things, then we again can revive our Krishna consciousness. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada here emphasizes that the importance of hearing about the Lord from elevated souls to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment to the Lord. And this whole process is completed by surrendering process. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to tell all of us. In the introductory song of Sharnagati, Sharnagati means the surrendering process. What does Bhakti Vinod Thakur say? He says, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive daya kori Swaparshad Suya Sangha Jahavatari. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with his associates, Parshada, to do Jive Daya, mercy onto the living entities, he incarnated. And what did he do? Atyanta durlabha premam koribare dana. Very durlabha, the rare prized reward of prema, love of Krishna. Koribare dana, he just gave freely. How did he do this? By his own example, Shikhaya Sharanagati Bhakatera Prana. By his own examples, he taught Sharanagati, how one can surrender unto Krishna. And this Sharanagati is the life of the process of devotees and of the process of Bhakti Yoga itself. And what is the Sharanagati? The Sharanagati is sixfold. Dainya Atma Nivedanam. That one is humbled by this process, that he is nothing, but this process is everything. And accepting this process of devotional service without meddling and bringing our own sense of imperfect knowledge into it. Simply hearing and executing. And that is called Atma Nivedana. Just surrendering to this process of Krishna consciousness. And Avashya Rakshive Krishna Vishvasa Palana. These two aspects, that Krishna will surely maintain me, that Krishna will surely protect me. And then Bhakti Anukula Marga Karyera Svikara. Whatever is favorable to devotional service, that I will accept. And we'll discuss tomorrow these aspects. And the last one, Bhakti Pratihula marga, vraje angikara, whatever is not favorable to devotional service, I will simply reject. So thank you, Prabhus and Matajis. My apologies. We just hit the 7 on dot. So we'll continue tomorrow. In short, if does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. Just I'd like to point out that from verse number 6 onwards, leading up to verse number 8. So these 3 verses are very thoroughly quoted by Srila Prabhupada in all his lectures. So if we can, read these verses and memorize these verses, that will be very nice. And Krishna willing, will continue this paper. It's quite a long paper tomorrow. Jai Granth Raj Srīmad Bhāgavatam ki Jai.
Jai. Thank you,
Srila
Prabhu.
Prabhupada ki Jai. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.